Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start this morning by calling to order our executive committee meeting. And with that, I would like Mr. Dillinger to lead us in a pledge to get started with our day. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, again, good morning. We have a very full day ahead of us, big agenda, and we'll begin with just calling for a motion to accept the actions of the executive board meeting, the minutes, and we'll action. This item is very important to the board, and it will be included on our board agenda. But for right now, we just want to approve the minutes.
I have motion to approve.
And a second from Mr. Butler. Thank you so much. All approved for us?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'll go ahead and adjourn the executive committee meeting. And just a few comments. I hope you can hear me okay. Today's our first time meeting in public, and we have Bernie McCabe with us on Zoom. But I think it's going to be very important for us to have eye contact and speak as clearly as we can into the microphone. And the other thing is, if you want to speak to one of the agenda items as we get started, I'll be watching you and make sure you put your hands up. It might be a little bit more challenging for me to see the red lights today. Everybody good with that? All right, then we're going to open the meeting of the Juvenile Welfare Board. And our first order of business will be to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So move. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ongst and Mr. Butler, and all approved?
Aye.
And all right, the consent agenda items are approved. So for those of you that are following along on the agenda, we are on item 3, action items. We have many today. So let's begin with action item A, approve extension of emergency response compensation period, and turn it to Laura. Do you want to get us started today?
Absolutely. Good morning. On the agenda today, we have an action item to approve the extension of emergency response compensation period. The board's emergency response policy allows for us to operate in these executive orders. The Pinellas County Emergency Management declared a state of local emergency back on March 13th, 2020. The board has approved emergency responses extensions through May 14th, July 9th, September 15th, and this will expire on December 14th. We are recommending that the response period be extended until March 12th, 2021. Back to you.
All right, so at this point, we'll call for a motion a motion and a second before we discuss.
So move. Second.
Thank you. I see Mr. Milliken, Chief Milliken, and I think Judge Moore. And any discussion, comments?
Madam Chair, I was just wondering, the March 12th date, is that a date that is coordinated with other jurisdictions, or what is the significance of that date?
I'm going to defer to Laura.
That's the date of the next board meeting is March 11th. And so the 12th would be after that
Okay.
meeting.
It makes sense. I wanted to know if it was coordinated with anybody else, or if we were expecting anything to happen by that date or anything like that. So,
No, we're expecting to have had a board meeting the day before.
understood. Okay.
All right, any other comments? All right, motion, how about a vote now? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, ratification of CEO approvals of her contract for emergency funding and emergency purchases. So Laura, back to you for item B.
Thank you. This item discusses these emergency decisions and contracts that have been made during this period. And attached to the agenda item, you've got the emergency purchases that have been approved by the CEO from the period of August 28th through November 19th. We have 2 emergency funding items. We do not have any emergency purchases. Those emergency funding items include $130,002 to 211 Tampa Bay Cares and $100,000 to FSI program support. I'll turn it back to you for ratification.
Before discussion, how about a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Chief Milliken. And a second?
Second.
Okay, and any discussion on this item?
That was Mike McCurrick for the second.
Okay, seeing none? All approved?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C and D, we were required to come up with a replacement, which we cannot replace, Mr. Dillinger, but he does sit on two very important committees for us, the Finance Committee, and he is the board representative for the board meeting. So we do have a board member who has expressed an interest, but before we go and make that motion, second, and approval, I'd like to toss it out there to all of the board members. Is anyone interested in serving on either of these board committees? Okay, we have we have spoken to, and Chief Milliken has accepted our invitation to join us on both, but we will do it now as an item C, which is to call for a motion to appoint board member Chief Milliken to be a member of the Finance Committee.
So move.
And seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so. Motion carries. Item D, once again, a motion to approve Chief Milliken to be the board representative on the Executive Committee effective January 1st, 2021.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So these two motions are approved, and welcome and thank you very much, Jim Milliken, for joining us. Appreciate that very much. All right, we're on to action item E, which is approve the FY21 advanced fund request. Laura, back to you.
Thank you. Yes, we are requesting an advance to the Learning Empowered Inc., and that's formerly the UMCM of Suncoast, who changed their name back in August of 2020. Their Quality Early Learning Initiative program, known as QELI, is moving from a unit-based cost to a cost reimbursement. And such, from a cash flow perspective, they have requested an advance of $100,000, which represents approximately 2 weeks of their program expenses. The advance will be returned or paid back through reimbursement prior to the end of the fiscal year, September 30, 2021. And this is in accordance with our board advance policy. And so we're here to request an advance for them of $100,000.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second, please.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And any discussion, questions, comments on the fund request?
That was Dr. Grego and Mike McCurrick.
Yes, that was Dr. Grego first and Mr. McCurrick second. Any comments, questions, concerns? We'll go for the vote. All in favor, please. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number F, letter F, I guess, ratify the Finance Committee recommendations from October 29th. Laura, back to you, please.
Thank you. Yes, the Finance Committee had met on August 18th of 2020, and at their October 29th meeting, took the following action items. So we have 3 areas here. The first one is dealing with the board policy revisions. Attached to your agenda item is a copy of that with all the trackings in it. Those were discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, and we're looking for ratification for that item. Second item is with the release of the participant management RFP. And this is the second piece of the GEMS replacement. So we've already moved forward with part of the GEMS replacement on the grant management. This is on the participant management side. The agenda item also includes the timeline for this RFP. And just to note that yesterday, December 9th, was when the written responses and questions were due. So we're moving forward with that RFP as well, with hopefully to have that in place and executed by April 1st. The third item to ratify would be the approval of the audit services request for proposals. We discussed that at length as well, knowing that back in July of 2019, the board changed its bylaws to have the auditor selection committee also serving as the finance committee. And so it's a combination of both of those. But this ratification item is to approve moving forward with the RFP. Also in line with the Florida statutes changing the requirements whereby if you have an auditor, you can have an auditor for no longer than 5 years as far as the term. And the 5 years ends that we have with Cherry Beckert, our current auditors. We've had them for well over 10 years. We're not unhappy with them, but based on the statutes, we are required to go out for proposal and submit a bid. So having said that, we're moving forward. Like I said, it's on the agenda item for the Finance Committee meeting next week on the 17th to just review and go through the criteria and the timeline with anticipation of sending out the RFP in February. The auditors are completing their audit for fiscal year 9/30/20. As a matter of fact, they started their field work this week. And plan on finishing that up, presenting the audit and being finished with that. But we're moving forward and looking into fiscal 21. So those are the 3 items that the Finance Committee would like ratification of.
Okay, well, let's get a motion and a second before we discuss these items.
Motion.
Mr. McCurrick
Second.
and Mr. Milliken. Okay. Comments, questions, concerns? Okay. We've certainly discussed these items at length. So at this point, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are now action item letter G, which is to approve community council appointments. So for this, we go out to Zoom to hear from Joanne Rich and Eurydice Garcia to introduce our new members.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This is Joanne Rich, Community Planner with the Juvenile Welfare Board. It gives me great pleasure to introduce for nomination Ms. Beth Hovind. Ms. Hovind is a longtime member of the League of Women Voters. She's currently chair of the League of Women Voters Florida State Poverty Action Team and is co-chair of the North Pinellas Poverty Committee. Back in 2019, she helped organize their Poverty Summit with internationally known speakers, attracting more than 70 agency leaders. And this year, even amidst COVID, they facilitated the racial wealth gap exercise virtually to bring the awareness into more people in this area. Ms. Covid has earned her master's in social work degree and worked for various agencies in Wisconsin and California. Excuse me. She directed a housing project for low-income women, supervised an incest treatment program, and directed a youth program for the state. She worked for the Wisconsin Department of Health and Social Services, directing statewide programs and staffing on the Governor's Council on Domestic Abuse. Beth has taught social work, and Beth is also a member here with Advocates for Race Amity, and she's a resident of Tarpon Springs, Florida, and we are so fortunate to have her here in our community. She will be representing a community organization in that category on the North County Community Council. The second person I would like to recommend for North County Community Council member is Ms. Carmen Lake. Carmen is currently employed by Pinellas County Schools as a family community relation liaison at Tarpon Springs Elementary School, connecting community stakeholders and business agencies. Now, you may recognize Carmen as previously she was employed for 8 years at our Union Academy Neighborhood Family Center, one of our neighborhood family centers, as the program director. Carmen received her MBA degree in Business and Management Studies. She's a certified fraud examiner and a certified financial services auditor. Carmen has numerous professional organizations and volunteer activities, including with BETA, United Way, the MLK Junior Events and Scholarship Foundation of Tarpon Springs, where one of our own board members, Dr. Greco, was the Grand Marshal in last year's parade. Carmen also is involved with the American Red Cross, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, and an active member of Mount Moriah AME Church in Tarpon Springs, where she led our school supply drive that JWB helped participate during the COVID pandemic. So she will be representing community at large for Tarpon Springs. And I'm so honored to introduce both of these two for recommendation to the North County Community Council.
Thank you, Joanne. And Eurydice?
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Yaridis Garcia, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce Julianne Perez to be part of the Mid-County Community Council. Ms. Perez is the Community Engagement Administrator for the City of Largo. She grew up in St. Petersburg from second grade through her undergraduate studies in anthropology and international relations at USS St. Pete campus. She has volunteered for local organizations, including All Children's Hospital, Empath Health, and the Hispanic Outreach Center. Ms. Perez has spent the past 10 years working in community development efforts in Peru, Ecuador, Nicaragua, the San Francisco Bay Area, and now back to her home county, Pinellas. Her focus areas are monitoring and evaluation of social programs, community health, youth development programs, environmental sustainability, and cross-sector partnerships. She loves conducting focus groups and facilitating activities that inspire dialogue with community members. And she's very passionate about incorporating these insights to inform service programs and policies. Ms. Perez is bilingual, English and Spanish. She will serve in the government category in the Mid-County Council. Upon approval of these appointments, we will have 44 active community councils, 12 serving North County, 18 serving Mid-County, and 14 in South County. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, all right, we fortunate to have three fabulous women joining us. I read their bios before the meeting, and it's just so very impressive to have that representation. So at this point, let's go with the motion and a second.
I'll
Mis-
motion to approve.
Mr. McCurick, and thank you, Judge Moore. Any comments? I think you'd probably join me in welcoming these women to serve with us on our community councils for Juvenile Welfare Board. All right. All approved?
Aye.
I'll ask for an opposed, but I think we're all good. This motion carries. All right, we're moving on now to action item H, which is coming back to discuss the annual CEO performance assessment evaluation that was done by the executive committee. We went on to do three things. We did the performance assessment, we reviewed a salary, and then we also approved some very aggressive goals, if I might so say myself, for the next fiscal year. We were very fortunate to have Mary Grace Duffy work us through this process. And if I'm not mistaken, Mary Grace is on Zoom and is going to at least remind everyone about the process.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you
Okay,
so
great.
much.
Thank you. It was a little unclear with that. Yeah, so as Susan said, we use the same format that we have used previously with the CEO evaluation. And I'm very pleased to say that there was 100% response from the board members, so thank you. We did that during October of 2020. The evaluation was for the previous fiscal year, so October 1st through September 30th, 2019 to 2020. As before, There were 3 sections to the evaluation. The first section, Beth was asked to comment on the 2019-2020 goals and the attainment of those goals. And then each board member was also given an opportunity to comment on that. The second was a section that had 4 general questions, 3 questions related to leadership, and 1 question related to goals or expectations for the coming year. And again, Beth was able to respond to that, as were all of the board members. And then finally, there were numerical rankings in 4 areas. Vision, mission, and strategy was the first, fiscal and resource management the second, board relations the third, and then community relations and or community leadership as the 4th section. All of the board members responded with numerical rankings. The CEO is not asked to respond to that particular section. The executive committee then met on October 29th, and I know you have the minutes and the report from that committee. And prior to that, they had received and reviewed a summary of all of the board responses, as well as the responses that Beth provided. And then, as Mrs. Ralston just said, began the discussion on a couple of issues. One was obviously a review of the performance evaluation itself. The second was thinking about compensation, and the third area was thinking about goals. And the goals really were developed in 4 areas: strategic planning, programs and initiatives, portfolio management, and community and constituent relationships. So there were drafts of those that were presented to the executive committee. They were refined somewhat at that meeting, and then in consultation thereafter with Mrs. Ralston and Ms. Houghton, the final version was agreed upon for this current fiscal year. So if you have any questions about the process, I think everyone has had access to the summary, which was excellent, I might add. I've done this enough years now that I have some comparative evaluations to look at, and this was really one of the best. So, Mrs. Ralston, is there anything else? Any other questions?
No, as always, I thank you, Mary Grace, for your professional assistance. And for the board, I think most of you know, Juvenile Welfare Board has developed a very hardy, to use an adjective, system for
Right.
evaluating our CEO for the last 3 or 4 years. And being that this was Beth Houghton's first year, I think that you would all agree there was no surprise. Beth hit a home run, given the dynamics of what went on this year with COVID. On top of that, approving a strategic plan, new focus areas, dealing with emergency fund movements to better serve this community. I think every board member agreed. We have a home run here. So the evaluation document stands for itself. We certainly did a compensation adjustment, keeping it in line with what we've done in the past. And then again, the third item that's part of this approval is the goals that are set for next year. So we did it very efficiently through Zoom meetings. And as Mary Grace said, consultation back and forth between Beth and myself and Mary Grace. So I present to you that annual document and call for a motion and a second, and then I'll open it up for comments and concerns.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
And second, thank you, Chief Milliken. And at this point, questions, comments, concerns?
I would
Miss-
just like to make a comment. Again, I thought the process, Mary Grace did a fantastic job as always. It was well put together, very concise, very focused. And when we got to the point of actually doing the reviews, what was extremely interesting to me is we had pretty hefty goals in the first place. And then we threw COVID on top of it.
Mhm.
That threw everything out of whack. Yet Beth's focus, capabilities, and leadership were able to transcend a lot of the issues that we were dealing with and continue to move us forward. That to me was exceptional. And I'm really happy to see that we're at this point in time getting ready for who knows what next. But clearly, I think we have a team under Beth's leadership to take us in the right direction.
All right. Any comments, Mrs. Houghton?
It's been a joy and a pleasure, and it will continue to be, despite all the challenges. As one of our executives mentioned, as we all read the newspaper headlines, many of us could merely wring our hands. And it is of great satisfaction to know for me, and as stated by the staff member, that I'm in a place and working with you and a group of staff people where we can really make a difference in children and families' lives.
All right, with that, all approved? Any opposed? This motion carries. All right, now we have a pretty substantial next action item. It is action number letter I, approve the FY21 budget amendments for unassigned fund balance. This will actually, in the end, turn out to be 3 votes. We'll take them one at a time. So with that, Laura, you want to discuss them one at a time and call for the vote would probably be most efficient.
Okay, that'd be fine. So we are speaking about a budget amendment for fiscal 21 from the unassigned fund balance. We're asking for $3,018,991. To give you a little information, so we have not closed out the fiscal year 20 books yet. As you know, we have made most of all the audit adjustments, but the audit is still underway. Certainly, there will be a final adjustment that we usually get from the Florida retirement system to record the unfunded pension liability. So that's a number we won't get till probably later, either this month or next month. Having said that, we have determined that our lapsed dollars for fiscal 20 are estimated to be approximately $12 million. And that's 15% of our total expenditures. And looking back in the prior year, fiscal 19, our lapse was 10 million. And when we look at the average over the prior 3 years, it's been hovering around 7 million or 10% of total expenditures. So this proposal seeks to utilize the differential between what we might refer to as the excess lapse. So the lapse that we anticipate this year versus what the average lapse has been. And that nugget, if you would, so to speak, is approximately $4 million. So when we analyzed the expenditures and the possible reasons for why we had an increase in lapse, a substantial portion of that was attributable to COVID. So we had programs that or fund agencies that just couldn't spend their dollars either due to social distancing or due to participant programs and expenses that they couldn't incur. For example, field trips was a big item that a lot of the agencies could not do because of the restrictions of COVID. So in your agenda or in your memo, so the first item here talks about increasing the amounts for the bandwidth of FSI. And this piece of the memo was addressed in action item 3B. So we've already discussed and voted or ratified, if you will, the executive CEO's spend, if you would, for the 211 Tampa Bay Cares, the Family Services Initiative, the PEMS for the FSI, System Navigators, the Gulf Coast Jewish Family Community Services, and the FSI program support. So those items we've discussed, and we've talked about those in the previous item. The second piece here is allocating funding to the Pinellas Community Foundation for Family Eviction Prevention. And so the budget amendment that we're referring to, the $3,018,991, is for family eviction prevention. And when you look at what's going on in the community, and Beth will speak to this after I kind of walk you through this, is we are recommending, as Chair Ralston indicated, we have 3 pieces of the recommended actions. The first piece here is recommending a waiver to award funds for the Family Eviction Prevention Program to Pinellas Community Foundation. They were selected by Pinellas County as a subrecipient to administer the Pinellas Cares not-for-profit fund partnership fund. The second piece is that we will discuss as an action item is the budget amendment itself, the $3,018,000, and it's broken down and it's a little complex, but it gets into a lot of different areas, and you can see that in your memo. And again, I'll have Beth speak to that. And then the third piece that we're referring to is requesting an advance of 25% for the 3 legal entities, which would be getting a portion of these funds. And the advance would be $156,000, 202. And that's a little bit over what the policy is for 100,000. So we're asking for approval on that piece to obtain that advance. Those are the 3 action items. And then the last piece of this memo speaks to any residual that we have of this $4 million, which right now is about $662,000. We're asking that we could consider to come back to you to look at a possible way of maybe utilizing or those funds. And it's a 2-prong approach. One would be to consider utilizing that as working capital distribution for all the agencies, and we would utilize some sort of a ratable allocation between that. Or the other possibility would be to utilize those funds to additional funds for the capital RFA. So we've just completed the evaluation of the non-operating capital RFA. The recommendations and the discussions will be before the Finance Committee next week, and then it will come to you. The differential between the 1.250 amount, which is what we awarded this year in comparison to $1 million in the previous year, is $662,000. Is $236,000. So the way the capital RFA works is it goes through the evaluation committee, and they're all graded based on different criteria. The drop dead criteria amount is 65. So if you rank less than 65, then you're not considered for the capital award. However, when we go through the criteria and we rank all the agencies' projects that they've submitted, we start with the highest ranking one, which in this case, I believe was 85 points or so forth. And as we dwindle down and accumulate our funds, we ended up stopping, and we were not able to fund everybody that had 65 points, if you would, or percentage. That cutoff amount was in the 70s. If we were to consider to fund all of those that had obtained a 65 grade point, if you would, that differential would be $236,000. So that's another possibility that we might want to consider. But going back to the recommended actions that we'll be speaking to, I'll turn it over to Beth. She can elaborate probably a little more better, articulate the specific details, because it's been a lot of work and effort. I know has spent a lot of time on this and probably have spoken to you all about it, but I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Laura. You did a great job of walking us all through that. I'll just sort of hit high points of our rationale. I want to make it clear that we didn't look in October and say, oh my, the lapse is higher than we expected, we must spend this. On the other hand, as soon as we knew that the lapse was going to be significantly greater than we would have expected, and that its reason was COVID, it did beg the question of that additional lapse was created by COVID, and what are the concerns in the community today, particularly among those agencies we fund and the families and children that we support, that are also caused by COVID. And we're well aware that while there are a whole raft of concerns for those families and children that we serve, that one that was going to fall off the cliff unless someone stepped into the breach was going to be family evictions. And we were staying in touch with The Pinellas Community Foundation and Duggan Cooley, their CEO, is here if you have any questions for him. And we're impressed with the process that was used in order to select and create a very effective program for evictions. Now, to be clear, the program that COVID Cares funded through the county and then administered by Pinellas Community Foundation is for anyone affected by COVID. It is not limited to families with children. Our funds obviously would only be used for families with minor children. That's who we are, and that's our restriction, and that's our focus. So the budget laid out here and the dollars are based on our best estimates from experience that the Pinellas Community Foundation has had since September 15th running this program, and making that estimate or allocation based on the percentage of families with minor children that have been in that program. Besides providing rental assistance, which is the largest portion of these dollars, the magic, if you will, of this program is that it utilizes the expertise of all of the legal aid organizations in our community who are collaborating, which is a good thing. They are communicating with each other. It's a no wrong door sort of process, so that wherever a family might go in any one of those agencies, they will get to the right place. Bay Area and Gulf Coast represent tenants, and there's great evidence that when represented by an attorney, a family is much less likely to have an eviction on their record, which then not only impacts them immediately, but impacts their ability to rent pretty much the rest of their lives. It does not go off of your record. So it has both the immediate impact and, perhaps literally a lifetime impact on that family. The community law program has stood up a mediation program so that both landlords and tenants can be in the same room. The larger amount of activity is done there, and the secret sauce, if you will, in that program is that the mediator can have both the landlord and tenant together and has an immediate source, meaning 72 hours, 48 hours of making the agreed upon back rent payment. And so a mediator is able to say to the landlord, you've got 4 months past rent, 5 months past rent, you may never receive that, but if we can settle on 3 months today, you'll get a check in 2 days. That's a position a mediator likes to be in, to have something genuinely to offer both parties and the ability to move the money quickly. So we've been monitoring that program carefully and its structure. You all may well have seen the Washington Post article from Tuesday that I think that was reprinted in the Tampa Bay Times yesterday, if I'm getting my days right this week. The top headline was about the impending evictions nationally, and the Orlando Sentinel ran an article yesterday that talked more about Florida statistics relative to that cliff. And you probably won't be terribly surprised that Florida's outlook for evictions was among the worst of all the states. So we don't have Pinellas County specific data, but for the experience of the Community Foundation and this program as it's run so far. But we've got significant evidence, both qualitatively from the agencies that we work with and the other folks we talk to, as well as what statistics are out there, that this is a significant impending issue that affects family stability, the ability to be healthy and whole, a crash into the homeless system that is ill-equipped to deal with this. So this is a significant amount of money. There are a number of our important agenda items today that are smaller amounts of money. This is a significant amount of money, and as I heard recently, when you spend money, you can only spend it once. And this is not the only issue we will deal with this year. I would remind everyone that as Mr. Ongst has often pointed out to us, we have a very healthy reserve or fund, unallocated fund balance. I think given the circumstances that we're all in now and the unknown economy for the next years, we're very glad we have that. But we should obviously use it carefully and prudently. I will leave it at that, but certainly be available for questions.
So because this is a really.
Yeah, Mr. Dillon.
I see, Mr. Dillon, because this is such an important. Sorry, this is such a critical agenda item today. I think we'll go to some discussion first, then call for the motions and the votes on the three topics. So I defer now to Mr. Dillinger.
Yeah, I'd really actually like to hear from Duggan about the 3 months roughly that this has been going on, what kind of success there's been and how the landlords have reacted, how the tenants have reacted, and what our success rate is projected to look like.
So we're still getting statistics. We get weekly reports from agencies about the number of people that have been served. The vast majority of the cases that have been presented to our legal aid agencies have been successfully mediated or ended. Part of the success in that is that we have the financial ability to pay back rent. So typically when these cases arrive at court or are going to arrive at court, there's not a source of money that is available to assist in paying back rent so the tenant gets evicted. So we've had a great degree of success in that. Anecdotally, the tenants are quite pleased, but more than that, we have landlords that are mom and pop landlords. They own one property or the second part of a duplex is leased out, and this is what helps them pay the mortgage, and have been very pleased with their ability to be able to recover the dollars, but then also provide the stable housing for the family or continued stable housing. An additional component of the program as it is today, and we're working with the JWB staff to figure out how we integrate this to FSI, there's been a connection to the Homeless Leadership Alliance. There's been dollars available for housing navigators there. And so in cases where the eviction is not going to be able to go away, mediators can successfully negotiate a longer term exit for a tenant. And during that time, the tenants are connected to the Homeless Leadership Alliance. We can help them acquire additional or new safe and affordable housing, and then pay their move-in and those costs so they can get other stable housing. So sometimes the mediation, when we don't have success in getting rid of the eviction, still results in stable housing for an individual or a family on the basis that we can help them move out and have negotiated a longer term exit instead of a near immediate exit upon the a writ being issued. So that will forestall some of that. And we've had success in that as well. The Homeless Leadership Alliance has been working with a number of cases already that were not successfully able to be resolved, but are being resolved in an alternative means.
Mr. Grego.
Mr. Pooley, thank you for being here. My comment is more of a comment, not a question, but if we could ensure, I mean, the word stability has been said most frequently, and the notion of having and offering students stability. We talk a lot about the adults, but this is really centered on families, that they stay in the same school, that we're able to connect with the district so that students aren't jumping, because when they jump, it all falls apart. So I hope that that is a part of this work, so that the communications students are not going from 2-3 schools because of their living conditions. And we help stabilize that. We do that with homeless, but we certainly want to do this with this program on evictions too, or the lack of evictions, hopefully. So thank you very much. Yeah, it's a good program.
Mr. Ongst?
Mr. Cooley, thank you for being here. I've heard nothing but good things about this program and how it's working so far. It's not easy to administer something like this. Obviously, with the extent of the crisis and the expediency at which it arose, like I said, I've heard really good things so far. I've got a couple questions about the long-term kind of view on this. So do we have any idea how long we anticipate these funds to last? Or, to what extent they are going to cover us for a certain period of time?
So what we put together with the JWB team was an estimate for 9 months based on today's spending. And based on the fact that about 50 to 52% of the cases we've had so far have been with families with minor children in the household. I can say for us, CARES really began at the foundation in August. A lot of grant money started flowing in September. Some of this eviction mitigation and mediation programming got off the ground in October. And we've seen a steady increase in the amount of back rent payments that have been paid, the number of clients that have been approaching. So right now, our best estimate is that the budget we put together to last 9 months, including the pool of funds to pay back rent. I think part of our commitment, and I think the JWB team commitment, is to review this on a monthly basis, to look and see where we're at, what's happening, and adjust as we go forward. And if things are drastically different, then Beth would bring that back to the board for continued discussion. So it's new, and the situation is ever evolving, but right now our best estimate was to have this program in place for about 9 months. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it last 6 or 5, based on what we start seeing in January and February of next year when we see the expiration of the CDC moratorium on evictions.
Okay. I guess my next question is, in terms of whether or not this is a short-term kind of solution for folks in crisis, or if this is more of a long-term thing that can help them get back on their feet and then stay in the current situation, in the current housing, I guess it's just impossible to say. But when you just said it could be 5 or 6 months based on the CDC, that leads me to believe you expect these evictions to start increasing, and then the funds will go quicker, as opposed to, people are going to get their jobs back and they're going to be able to start paying again. Is that kind of more your outlook? I know it's predictive and it's not.
That's part of the outlook, but the other piece that I think is going to be different about this program than what we're doing right now through CARES is through CARES, all we can deal with is back rents. And the only future looking work that we can do is through households that need to move on and we can't mitigate the eviction. We can help them move into someplace new. That's an urgent and emergent need we can address through CARES. Through this, what we would be able to do is have a better and tighter connection to the FSI program. So you would be able to have housing stability through this program, then be connected to FSI, and we have more time to be able to help address family stability issues, and then connection to other agencies that might be able to help as well. That is not part of the design right now, just because of the restriction on the dollars. So I feel more positive about the stability going forward, but none of that stability will happen without stabilizing the current housing and the current situation. So I think we'll have a positive, better, more stable outcome for the future, but I do think on top of that, we're going to see an increase in the number of cases coming forward.
Okay, and just was really encouraged by, month to month, we like data.
Yes.
We really want to see number of cases, percentage of people that, had their case dropped or successfully mediated.
Right.
Or then we're placed with your navigators for longer term assistance and finding a new housing. So I'll be very interested in looking forward to seeing that.
And we can incorporate into our reporting from organizations any of the statistics that we want to collect. All of them have been very willing to work with us on this and work very well in a partnership with each other. I think the other thing that we have done, if nobody has taken a look at this yet, if you go to our website, pinellascf.org/cares, we have been extremely transparent about all of the reporting, the contracts, data, and information coming out of agencies through the CARES dollars. And I anticipate that we'll carry that forward. We've had less reporting on the data, but we're dealing with 65 different organizations in a very short-term grant program. I have no problem, and I think the agencies we work with would have no problem addressing whatever statistics are necessary to determine the success of the program as we go along.
Okay.
And I would
Mrs.
say,
Otten?
Mr. Rox, as you know, we're pretty data hungry here. And so our data and evaluation folks have been working hand in glove really with Duggan and his team. And we've been really pleased to see what they already gather and will have easily at hand for our people to look at. So you really have multiple sets of eyes, which I think is important to all of us relative to every expenditure being made.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dugan. Thank you. Any other questions before we call for the vote? Just one final comment, where we have short-term, midterm, and long-term effects of the money that we're deciding to spend in the partnerships. And one of the things that's most impressive to me when we think long-term is if we can avoid having a stain that will go with our families forever if they are evicted. Avoiding that is just a huge piece of this. And I know it's a longer term piece, but it's been important as I've watched all of this. And the other comment is the staff has been looking at this for months. Beth and I consult on the phone, if not weekly, at least biweekly, and certainly kept abreast of the attention to detail and research that's been done before this action item comes before you for a vote. So with that, we'll take them one at a time. A motion and a second for item 1, which is the requesting the purchasing waiver to award the funds. Mr. Grego, and second? Oh, Bob Dillinger first,
I'll
and
second it then.
Judge Moore second, and
Okay.
all approved? Any opposed? That motion carries. The second item is requesting budget amendment to reduce the unassigned fund balance. So a motion? Thank you, and a second. Thank you, Chris Milligan, Jim Milligan, and all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and the third item is requesting the advance of the 156,202, 25% of each of the 3 legal entities. So with that, a motion? Thank you, Mr. Dillinger. Second, thank you, Mr. Milligan, and all in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Very good. Congratulations and good work. And thank you for the partnership.
And the work continues. I was going to say the work begins, but the work continues.
All right. Item J on the agenda is to approve the termination of Hope Villages of America, formerly known as Religious Community Services. And Beth, we'll turn that one over to you.
Very good. There is a long memo in your packet that you've seen, and of course has been public, in addition to the corrective action plan that has been ongoing. So while the memo is long, it does not exhaust everything we might say about it, believe it or not. But I won't go through that again unless there are questions. But we have come to the point where the termination of the contract with HVA, formerly known as RCS, for Grace House, is recommended to you to extend that contract through February 28th. And the recommendation then is that we take the remaining funds from that JWB budget line item and continue to address family homelessness with those funds for the rest of the fiscal year in a contract with St. Vincent de Paul for its Family Bridge program that is explained well in the memo. And I would just point out that particular program was competitively procured by the county via the Homeless Leadership Alliance. So while it is technically sole sourced from us, it has gone through a competitive procurement and is known to us.
So moved.
I heard it so moved.
So moved.
Dr. Graham.
Right, and I see second first. Second the motion, and I see Mr. Hans and then Mr. Miller.
Just a real quick question. In terms of the service area of St. Vincent de Paul, does it serve a similar geographic area and similar population? That's one of my concerns. I know Grace House is in the Clearwater, North Pinellas area.
Absolutely. While their place-based shelter for St. Vincent de Paul is in St. Petersburg, this program is a scattered site program throughout the county and is already scattered throughout the county. And so it in fact is countywide.
Okay.
And that was absolutely key to us. And we looked not only at the location of Grace House, but at the zip codes of the participants to confirm that where they were, so that we would be able to continue to meet that need. I would point out it is HVA's stated intention to attempt to raise the money to continue to keep Grace House open. We fund about 60% of their budget. We don't fund all of it. That is a heavy lift for them, but they are not announcing or have not announced that they would close that program at the termination of this contract. That, of course, is up to them.
Okay, Mr. McCurrick?
I echo Mr. Young's concern specifically to North County. I'm concerned also that this program, although it's very good, may be just a stopgap in the interim in time. And I'm not, to be very honest with you, we've seen this for a long time coming. And so my potential belief that RCS can actually pull this off is pretty low. The probability is very low. So I believe that we really do need to continue to search and look at how we can get a better or a much broader support mechanism in place in North County to meet the real demand going forward. And if it means that the St. Vincent's housing programs and the thing like can be expanded and extended into North County in a much stronger way, that's one option, or others need to step on board or look to provide that service to meet and close the gap of what we're losing here.
Yeah, this is a broader discussion, but an important one, and one I'm happy to bring back a little bit later. I would just say that over time, we've learned, by that I mean those who work in the homelessness arena, that place-based services are not typically the best way to spend money. That having programs that are scalable, which this one is, so that you're purchasing the housing in essence when you need it, and that it is on a housing first, under the housing first rubric, which is best practice. And there's a lot more I could say about that, but combines bridge housing with rapid rehousing, tend to have the better results. And I've looked at our county's results and St. Vincent de Paul's results from this program, and they're by maybe 20 percentage points better than Grace House's results when measured by exit status to permanent housing. And that's the immediate goal of these programs.
And I don't disagree with anything you just said. Again, though, my major concern is that its primary focus has been heavily involved in South County. And being able to expand and grow that capability across the Northern County, I think is extremely important to do at this time. And I agree. I mean, the housing, if we can find a more effective and a less costly way, if that's possible, but one that's more effective and it fits the needs of the community by doing its direction, all means, let's do that. I'm not saying we should open another house, What I'm saying is that we've got to really focus in on what we're losing or what we don't have, and maybe didn't have in North County as well, that we really do need to have now.
Okay, Mr. Dillinger.
I have a different viewpoint. I think our funded agencies have to realize that when they get a corrective action plan, we're serious about it. These folks were under corrective action plans for quite a while and didn't respond. And I think the agencies need to know that if they don't respond, they're not going to get funded. And, you know, shelters don't work. Back when it was the old HLB and we had the stats, people who went into shelters tended to come to another shelter. There was very low success rate. And as Ms. Houghton indicated, getting them into stable housing is the way you address homelessness, not shelters. But there's got to be accountability for these taxpayer dollars when people are doing things wrong, and it's explained to them what they did wrong and how they corrected, and then they don't do it. There's got to be ramifications.
Thank you. I see Mr. Ongst and then Judge Moore.
Well, I mean, this is just more of a comment, but you know, I totally agree with Mr. Dillinger. Also agree with Mr. McCurrack. I mean, I think that it's like Beth said, it's a broader conversation kind of on the strategic location of the programs. And obviously there's no alternative program, you know, up in Clearwater right now to put the money towards. So I'm totally in favor of this. This one hurts. I mean, my church supports Grace House. I've been there painting the walls and stuff with my wife and kids. And I mean, I wish we didn't have to do this, but I understand why we do, and I support it. So,
Judge Moore?
And I think my view is different, and it doesn't matter where St. Vincent House is. It doesn't matter that they're in South County. If they can do it and they can do it well, let them do it. And I think the whole focus has been just because they're located in South County or they're going to serve South County. That's not the issue. They're going to serve North County. So I say give them a chance to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think St. Vincent de Paul, if they have a higher performance record, I mean, I'm leaving from here shortly to go. They're going to be receiving $5 million with the Bezos in partnership with the school district for homelessness and the St. Pete area. So I think, Ms. Houghton, if you just have a conversation with them, I think, as the judge says, no longer are there locations and this is your service area. The service area for homelessness is all over the district, and I think they're very able and capable. They just need to know there's so many factors and variables coming into this discussion that I think we just need to sit down and talk about the concerns that are legitimate concerns, but I think they're also solvable so that families can, again, face this stability that they so need. So as more monies are coming in, let's be smart about it so that we, at the end of the day, we can look back and say we've truly made a difference.
Back to Mr. McCurrack.
I think I just want to make sure that what I was saying is well understood. I wasn't trying to convey a North versus South County. What I was trying to convey is that we really need to fit across the entire county, and North County it just happens to be at this point, the impact place. Now, if St. Vincent can do it, which I have no question or thought that they can't, great, but let's go do it. Let's not, spend time. We've gotten, as you just said, Mike, $5 million from Bayos to St. Pete. Let's make it county. I don't see the issue of where, and it is, it's Pinellas County. I think that's what's important to be understood. And I think our message has to come out that way. And Judge Moore is absolutely right. It's no longer a South or North, it's the county, and it's the children within that county that we have to service.
Okay. All right. Colleen, can you confirm that we had a motion and a second and we're going for the vote?
Correct. We had a motion by Dr. Grego and a second by Mr. McCurrack, and we do have a comment card on this item.
Okay, thank you.
The person who would like to speak is Melinda Perry from Hope Villages of America.
Good morning. My name is Melinda Perry, Chief Operating Officer with Hope Villages of America, formerly RCS Pinellas. And first, on behalf of our President and CEO, Kirk Ray-Smith, and myself, just want to thank you for your support over the years to allow us to serve the individuals in need, especially homeless families. So thank you for that. I also wanted to share that we do actually operate really great programs. Be happy to invite any of you to come over and see and hear about what we do on a firsthand basis. We have amazing staff who are committed to serving these families. They work very intensely with them on a regular basis to ensure that they do complete the program and that they move on to stable housing. For the families who do complete the program and aren't exited due to maybe violations, about 90% of those families do move on to stable housing. And then we do follow them for a year after they leave us to ensure that they don't fall back into a situation of homelessness. I know one of the original concerns was administrative, and we had an administrative monitoring a couple weeks ago, had no issues, so we've moved past that. Then the concern shifted to the program. And on the cap, 2 items on the programmatic side are that we submit our exit surveys to staff for review. We've been doing that, and I'm happy to report that for the last fiscal year, 91% of those surveys that were completed were either satisfied or very satisfied with services that they received. So we'll continue to submit those. And then also another item was tracking centrally the guest requests for basic needs items, which we've been doing in the past. And for several years, guests would complete weekly reports on things that they're requesting, such as hygiene items, cleaning products, anything that they need that we had or had the ability to procure, we were able to provide that to them. So now we have a centralized tracking system for that. I would note that for those 2 programmatic items, there is no metric to remove them from the cap. There's no timeline on length of time to submit exit surveys, or once you reach X% of satisfied, you don't have to do it anymore. Additionally, with the tracking mechanism, that's been completed, but there's no time frame on when that is removed from the cap. So I understand that is staff discretion. It could stay on until the end of the contract, which is fine. We'll continue to do those things. But just want to let you know about that information. We thank you for your support for the other programs that we do operate, and for this opportunity.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're actually calling for the vote. We have a motion and a second to approve the termination of the Hope Villages of America's contract. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This motion carries. Our next item is item K, approve the termination of the St. Pete Free Clinic contract and repurpose the dollars. Beth, back to you.
This is an action item that has no dollar impact. The St. Petersburg Free Clinic Family Residence has been a housing provider for the our FSI program since 2013, when they took over a building formerly owned by an organization called ASAP on 11th Avenue South in St. Petersburg. And the St. Petersburg Free Clinic, for 2 different reasons that are compelling for them, have notified us that they wish to terminate this contract and agreement. The 2 reasons are they are going through their own strategic planning, and this program doesn't fit well within their strategic direction. And secondly, the facility that has been used on 11th Avenue South is either 1920s or 1930s vintage, but not well maintained for numerous years. And at this point, their estimate is that it would cost more to put it in appropriate shape than the entire property is worth. And so they are not very inclined to make that kind of decision. So they have notified us. I would want to say they've been incredibly honorable about letting us know that this was even a point of discussion with their board, so that we had time to think about it. Their board now has made that decision, but is willing to continue to provide up to 14 units, which is their contract, through March 31st. The other provider that the Juvenile Welfare Board's FSI program already works with is St. Vincent de Paul at their location in St. Petersburg. And it is, while the contract has a different structure, it is for exactly the same service. And we have had that in place since I want to say 2014, maybe 2015, with great success. In contacting their CEO about their ability to ramp up or to scale up to fill this gap, because they have significant units under, within their main facility, many dedicated to veterans, many dedicated to families and others. They were very willing to do that at their current rate if they were able to use the family bridge approach the scattered site that I described before, so that they could use, I'll call mid-level motels, Comfort Inn kind of locations, or apartments that they rent throughout the county in order to place these families. We would be charged the same amount. So I think actually we're moving in the right direction and able to take care of that quickly. We would like the St. Vincent de Paul contract to be amended February 1st so that we could begin placing families there and not be placing families at St. Pete Free Clinic only to move them again.
Thank you, Mr. Dillinger. I have a second over here with Mr. McCurrick, and we'll look through the line. Any comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This motion carries. We are on to the final of our action items, L, which is to approve FY 21 $106,000 budget amendment, future programming, and Beth, back to you.
Yes. As you can see, Laura took the first part of the agenda and I'm taking the next one. This is a very joyful recommendation to bring to you. We're asking that $106,000 for this fiscal year be moved from our future programming budget into our administrative budget so that we are able to hire Dr. Barbara Morrison Rodriguez full-time. Her scope of work will be both in the evaluation area, in which she has extraordinary expertise, but also to move forward our 0 to 3 initiative. And that differential between her ability to work with us on a contract basis as a consultant, as she has for probably 10 or so years, and her ability to be part of our executive team as Chief Evaluation and Innovation Officer is the reason both for the dollar difference, part-time with no benefits to full-time with benefits, but also is that increment of focus and extraordinary work that she will be able to do on our 0 to 3 initiative.
Let's call for a motion and a second
So
and then
moved.
discussion. Chief Mulligan, thank you first,
So
and Mr. McCurrick. Comments, questions, concern, Mr. McCurrick.
I couldn't be any happier to see that, one, we were able to offer this job, and two, that she would accept it. As I think we all know, Barbara has been a driving force behind the 0 to 3 programs that we've been all think that are very important to our community and important to our children. And I welcome her stepping in and not only helping guide the strategy towards that, but actually implementing the strategy with the rest of the community. I don't think we could have found a better person to do that.
Great. Okay, seeing no other comments, all approved? Any opposed? This motion carries. Great. Item 4 is the discussion and a brief discussion update from Linda Leedy regarding Cooperman Bogue.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to bring you up to date on our Kids First Cooperman Bogue Awards program. As you know, we canceled our luncheon in the spring and we suspended the issuance of awards at that time. And then as the year progressed, we began to hear from our funded agency leaders that, and we knew this as well, but they reached out to us that their staff in this pandemic are doing yeoman's excellent work with their children and families to keep them safe, going through all the safety protocols, the PPE, all on and on and on. And they're struggling with staff morale. because it's been very challenging. So we decided to do a temporary redesign of the program that we ran by Chair Mrs. Ralston, and she agreed that this year, rather than offering 4 quarterly winners, we're going to do 12 monthly winners. There's so many people out there that are working so hard. We'd like to recognize as many as we can. And we will not give an annual winner. There won't be a finalist, so to speak, at the end, so that we remain budget neutral. So, and to date, we have revised the nomination form to include a question about what acts have they done during the pandemic to really make kids and families feel safe. And we have already received numerous nominations. The first round closed November 20th. Our review team is the same as it has always been. It is representatives from our community councils as well as past winners. They rank and nominate the applications and then make selections, and we go out. Well, we used to go out. Now we'll probably virtually give an award, and then the individual, in addition to $500, as before, that gets recognition on our website, part of the PSAs, media releases, and then we would like to have them appear before the board at our monthly meetings, either virtually first and maybe eventually in person, just to get some recognition for their work. We don't have any plans at this point to do a 2021 luncheon, certainly not in spring. You know, maybe in the fall, maybe virtual. You know, we haven't taken it off the table completely, but at this point, we're kind of taking a wait and see attitude. But in the interim, we can still recognize these individuals.
Thank you. Comments? Great. Thumbs up here. And good work, Linda. Good creative use of staff time as well. It's this chair's prerogative to flip this agenda by one item. I'm going to move on to item 6 and just ask Beth Houghton about her Chief Executive Officer's report.
I'm going to say that I think you've heard enough from me today. And you have some idea of what the work of the staff and I've been. So I'll pass so we can move on to other items.
And I'm assuming we'll hear from you mid-month, as we always do. And thank you. At this time, the staff has prepared a brief video for us to see. So I'm going to make sure everyone, and in a moment, check your microphones, make sure they're on mute, and ask the staff to please shut the lights.
When the Juvenile Welfare Board was created 75 years ago, it was to do exactly what Bob has spent his entire career doing. He gives a voice to the voiceless, and he serves the underserved. If they are too weak or too small or too young, he lifts them up so others can see them and help them.
I got a call from then State Senator Jack Latvala saying Bob Dillinger wanted to be on the Juvenile Welfare Board, but Jack wasn't going to put Bob on unless I agreed to go on. Well, ultimately it got passed, and it's been a rewarding experience, and I can say that I wouldn't have been there but for Bob. It's helped me in my job as state attorney, and to watch him be so concerned about children and young people. Plus, he and I noticed that we needed a better focus of where our resources were going. And I think through Bob's leadership, we have made a difference in the community, and I think the board continues to do that.
I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Dillinger right after he was elected as the public defender. Fortunately, he had the good taste to hire me. When Mr. Dillinger came in, he did rebrand that we are the hope. He became the hope for a lot of the underserved in the Sixth Circuit, because the epitome of being the hope is serving the clients outside of the courtroom, and that's what he did. He started the mental health division. Also, his brand of We Are the Hope went over to the crossover division. He is the only office in Florida that the attorneys serve the juveniles, both in juvenile court as well as dependency court. And one of the things which has touched my heart, Kay Dillinger and Kat Coates, they decided that these kids needed clothes. And they came into the public defender's office and they turned an empty office into like a designer store. And it was great to see them come into this clothes closet and their eyes would just brighten up with the ability to go in there and just shop. These kids, when they came to court, it was a sense of hope.
I met Mr. Dillinger when I first came to Pinellas County as superintendent in 2012. And we immediately connected, and it was really his relentless drive to end chronic childhood hunger and really his love and desire to help children. You see, Bob saw the connection between the poverty and hunger of children and their school performance. Bob's Nourish to Flourish program that provides weekend meals began in 2012. It was only at one school, High Point Elementary, and it was distributing 10 meals per week. Now, Nourish to Flourish supports 22 schools and provides food for over 1,200 students per week.
I was CEO at the St. Petersburg Free Clinic. As I thought about who to invite to be a really inspirational speaker to our Hunger Free event, all I had to do was make the phone call, and anywhere Bob could go and speak about hungry children, he was there. And there was not a dry eye in the house. He gave remarkable examples. He saw kids going through the school lunchroom trash to be able to take home food for dinner or for their younger brothers or sisters. The image of that inspired all of us. And within a few years, the St. Pete Free Clinic was serving 1,000 kids every week. And that never would have happened without Bob.
Bob and Kay started a wonderful program at PACE called Beth's Closet. And oh my gosh, I love to go in that closet myself just to look at things. I've missed this year that we haven't had the luncheon because of the pandemic, but I have fond memories of those years because they celebrate education, young women, and of course they celebrate Beth's life.
I particularly think of him as a true humanitarian, a champion for those who are downtrodden. His hope is for people who at times are hopeless and who need someone to be on their side, to help them along, to give them reasons for being, and for some of them reasons for living.
I think as we age, we leave our fingerprint, so to speak, on a community. One would look at Bob Dillinger as saying, boy, he's left a major legacy. And so it's like the rising tide lifts all boats. Bob understands that. And what he's saying is that let's go ahead and support some of the most underprivileged youth. In essence, let's grow this entire community. I also want to say to his wonderful wife, Kay, what a tremendous outpour of love and care and consideration as they support Take Stock in Children scholarships.
When we start talking about problem of no school lunch because the schools are closed, or kids going home on the weekends without food, he gets very emotional about it. So you know he's serious. That, I think, is his legacy.
I think Bob's greatest legacy is that wherever he was, whether we were talking about mental health or hunger or housing or education, Bob always was there as the voice of children. And for him, it was just so personal.
He wanted to make sure that each child was properly fed, that they went to bed with a full stomach, that their homes were safe, that they got top-notch education, that he cared enough about them as the public defender to make sure the world around them was safe. I hope that every child in Pinellas County knows that because of Bob Dillinger, because of Kay Dillinger, that they are loved, that they are cared about, and I hope his legacy does not stop.
If I were giving Bob a Lifetime Achievement Award, I think I would say passionate and determined.
Kind, giving, loving.
I would say, in big letters, you made a difference.
I'd use the words passionate, sensitive, caring, knowledgeable, and speaking with conviction.
Advocate extraordinaire. That's Bob Dillinger.
Thank you for causing me to be put on this board, because it's helped me in my job immeasurably. And I hope that the contributions we have made together have been valuable.
Bob, I know you dedicated your time as public defender to being the hope. And I'm not sure I really knew what that meant when you started there, but then I saw you, and you have been the hope for children and families across our community. And so on their behalf, I thank you.
Bob, you can never say thank you enough. And for that, on behalf of our entire school district, on behalf of 100,000 plus students, on behalf of some of the most vulnerable students in our population, we thank you, and we thank you, and we thank you.
Bob, if I could have a chance to sit down with you, I'd be your surrogate mother. And I'd tell you, you've done a great job. You've had a wonderful career. You've done so many things to make this community better. You leave a legacy, and you are, in fact, an icon in this community.
Not only have you made an impression in the kid's life and in the family's life that you have served, but in each and every attorney that has served up under you. And that has made a difference. Because of him and Kay, I dared to dream. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. He saw something in me, and he encouraged me to run for judge. And to him, I say thank you, because you love me. You and Kay truly have been my mentors. And to you, I say thank you, job well done. Enjoy your retirement.
Bob, we'll miss your leadership on this board, but it's time now for you to begin a long and enjoyable retirement. So on behalf of all of us who are associated with Juvenile Welfare Board, thank you for 20 years of service to the children of Pinellas County.
Well now. First, I want to introduce Kay Dillinger, who joined us. And we can't thank Kay enough. I feel like Kay was a critical person to help us pull off the surprise this morning, lending the photos and being here this morning. I think by now, we all see that this was a labor of love. The staff, April and Gail, if you're here, this video done by Zoom with all of the coordination and dedication of the people involved, the speakers, as a dedication to you in this day of COVID. Kay, and I know Cassie played a big part as well. So giving us all a moment to catch our breath. I just want to thank the staff and everybody involved with the video. It was just absolutely labor of love. And at this point, I would like to open up to the other board members to please, any comments that you'd like to make. Miss
Bob, we'll miss you. Your leadership, your stick-to-itiveness, your ability to get us all riled up and focused on the real issues and honing down on, didn't matter who they were. I always thought maybe you and Bernie should have switched places at times, because when you got angry and when you were in a position where you felt that the children were being mistreated or not, you were and still are a tiger in that space. And And that is incredibly commendable. And as I said from in the beginning, we're going to really miss you and have the greatest retirement you can have.
Well, the surprises aren't over. One more, please. We have a presentation of a gift. I'm not even going to call it a plaque. It's a gift. And Linda's going to deliver it to you. I think it's up on the screen right now. And while Mr. Dillinger sees it, the statue is a visual expression as our appreciation of thank you for 20 years of service to Pinellas County children. And on behalf of all of us, it's time, sir, to begin your retirement.
Well, as Bernie mentioned, I do tend to get emotional. My wife said I could be a professional mourner at a funeral home. But I'm honored and humbled by all the kind words. I'm certainly honored this staff put together such an awesome video. It's something I'll always remember. I couldn't have done it without Kay. We have been through, over the last 40 years of our marriage, some bad times. But I just am of the opinion you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And when I heard about hungry children, I couldn't take it. And I couldn't have done this without a team effort from the office, from the courts, from the state attorney, from this board, and from the community. But you just don't know how humbled I am to have heard such fine words and nice, kind words. And I want to thank you all. I will continue to serve the community. And like I said, I couldn't have done this without the air beneath my wings, truly the better half. So again, thank you all very much. I very much appreciate it. And keep up the good work that you all do. Thank you.
With that, we'll begin the closing of our board meeting today. There are information items. Does any board member have an interest in pulling off an information item? I'll refer now to Mrs. Flynn. Do we have any public speakers?
Yes, Chantel Miles from the Pace Center for Girls wants to speak.
Good morning. I will be very brief. I just wanted to come and personally say thank you to Bob and Kay for all of your support of Pace Center for Girls through the Nourish to Flourish program, as well as the Beth Dillinger, the Beth's Closet. Funny, I just moved here from Jacksonville a little over a year ago. And before I came, I was told by our president and CEO, if you don't please Bob and Kay, be prepared to come back to Jacksonville. And really your reputation throughout Pace Center for Girls, Inc. Precedes you. You are wonderful advocates for our girls, for our program. I thank you. I felt like a video wouldn't do enough. I really wanted to come and say thank you to both of you for all that you have done and continue to do. And thank you for not ghosting me, Kay.
Thank you very much. Do we have any open agenda items to come before the board today?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make an additional comment if I might.
Yes, sir.
And Bob will remember this, but I think one of the most satisfying things about getting on the board was the prior executive director at the time that tried to kill the legislation and then tried to get the governor to veto it. And Bob and I, that made me mad, made him mad. And that's when I got involved in making sure it passed. And if you think about it, if he had been successful, Bob probably wouldn't have done as many good things that everybody knows about. because he wouldn't have been in a position to know the deficits in the community. So Bob, thanks again.
Over to you, Mr. Butler. Recognize some anniversaries, please.
In a few months for this. This is going to be good. These are October anniversaries. Lori Lewis is 11 years. And Quinn Fan is 9 years. Melissa Orkiewicz, 6 years. Gail Kellen Christensen, 4 years. And Sarah Winter, 2 years. And that concludes the anniversaries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other business to come before this board. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
This meeting is over.